How to replace the RAM in a desktop computer. Upgrading the RAM in your computer is a fast and cheap way to see an instant boost in your computer's performance. I'm going to show you how easy it is to replace the RAM in your computer so that your computer will run faster and you can get more done. First, we are going to gather the required materials. Open the computer case to expose the components we will work on. I will show you how to remove the old RAM and insert the new RAM. Then we will close the case. Finally, hook the computer back up and power on. Electrostatic discharge, or ESD, can destroy sensitive electronic components, such as those inside a computer case. While this shock is not harmful to us, it is devastating to electronic devices. To prevent this discharge, we can use an ESD wristband to keep our bodies and the components we are working on at the same level of charge, hence avoiding a discharge. One end is attached to your wrist, and the other end has a clip that can be attached to the computer case. RAM is itself an electronic device and needs to be handled properly. The RAM should always be held at the top or ends, avoiding contact with the black modules on the side and the contacts on the bottom. Touching these in the way demonstrated here can cause failure or premature wear. The first thing you will need is a clean area to work in. It is important we have room to move, but also the fewer the items that are in the work area, the less chance of an electrostatic discharge. We will need a computer case, a grounding device such as an ESD wristband, the new RAM, and a screwdriver. In order to access the internal components, we will need access to them. This means opening the computer case. There are many different types of cases, and some have screws holding them together. Others have plastic tabs that simply pull out. The case I'm going to demonstrate on is held together by two screws. I'm going to use the screwdriver to loosen them if needed, but usually you can just twist them off with your fingers. Be sure to hold on to the screws. You will need them later when we put the case back together. Once the screws are off, we can remove the side cover by pulling the back end out. Set the panel aside. Before touching anything in the case, you will need to make sure that you are grounded. Put on the ESD wristband and clip the free end to any metal part of the case. There are many different motherboard designs, but they generally have the same basic layout as seen here. Here is the inside of the computer case, and there are several important components to mention. At the bottom here we have our power supply, followed by the video card. Up at the top we have the CPU and fan assembly, and then over here are our RAM cards. Because the inside of the case can be a bit crowded, I'm going to demonstrate removing and inserting the RAM on a motherboard that is not in a case and does not have anything attached to it. Here is the CPU and fan assembly and the RAM. I'm going to turn the motherboard so you can better see the RAM slots and how the RAM is attached. These are the old RAM cards. As you can see, there are 4 slots that have 2 RAM cards inserted. Each RAM card is held onto the board with 2 clips, one on each side. To remove the RAM, you just need to press down on this clip. Repeat on the other side. This will eject the RAM card and allow you to remove it. Be sure to hold the RAM cards by the top or ends. Repeat this process for the other RAM cards if there are any. It is important to remember which slots had RAM cards in them, but not necessarily which cards were in which slots. At this point we have the old RAM out of the computer. We can see the clips are flipped out like this, and should not be flipped in like this. It is important the clips are in the correct position when we go to insert the new RAM card. An important note on the orientation of the RAM card. You can see there is a notch on the bottom of the RAM card, and it is not in the exact middle. This notch corresponds to a notch in the slot right here. When we insert the new RAM card, make sure the RAM card is positioned correctly. Here we have our new RAM in the package. Make sure you are still grounded with the wrist strap. Go ahead and open the package. Be sure to handle the RAM from the top and sides, and avoid touching the contacts. For now, place the RAM aside. Take a RAM card and locate the notch on the bottom, and match the notch with the one in the slot. Slide the RAM card in the slot and let it rest. Now we are going to press down from the top and alternate sides. You can press down on one slide and engage the clip, then press down on the other side to engage its clip. When the RAM is seated, you should hear a click indicating the clips are holding the RAM in place. Also, press on the clips to make sure they are in all the way. You will notice the clip is inside a notch in the RAM card. This will tell you that it is seated correctly. Repeat for the remaining cards if there are any. You want to fill the slots closest to the CPU first. If you have more new RAM cards than before, fill in the previously filled slots first, then insert the new cards into the remaining slots, starting with the one closest to the CPU. With the RAM installed, we are ready to replace the side of the case. Most cases have a lip on the side and must be inserted with this side first. Slide the end back into place and swing the cover shut. The screw holes will line up, and you can insert the screws from earlier. Tighten them down using your fingers. Hook the computer up and make sure the power cord is attached and plugged into the wall. Also, make sure the master switch on the power supply is switched on. Press the power button. The system will turn on and begin loading the operating system. Congratulations! Your system has been upgraded and you did it yourself.